Welcome to the Mojo Mundi podcast, where it's all about magic, manifesting, and movement. I'm Ginny Watts, the Dancing Witch, and in this episode, we'll explore perfection and the art of allowing. Perfection. This single, powerful word has been the focus of parents and children, teachers, ministers, psychotherapists, and self-help gurus. It has also been in the awareness of indigenous peoples for thousands of years. Whether we strive for it, as Vince Lombardi urged us to do, or we eschew it, as Dene weavers traditionally do, the concept is ubiquitous in the human psyche. Vince Lombardi said, "Perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence." Many of us go beyond simply striving for perfection. Our brains, which prefer absolutes to ambiguity, believe perfection is fundamental to proving self-worth, to demonstrating self-value, to creating self-safety. Our brains fear that not insisting on perfection will result in shameful mediocrity. Paradoxically, the brain's insistence on perfection often traps us in procrastination, avoidance, self-sabotage, and self-perpetuating shame. Excellence also has the potential to be a trap. While psychologists have uncovered the damage that the insistence on perfection has wrought, popular wisdom has chosen to substitute the word excellence for perfection. Excellence, however, can be defined as surpassing all others. The polarity inherent in this concept implies that as soon as one no longer surpasses all others, one has failed to meet the goal. The need to excel is a linear concept. We can always do better, so we should, and we must. If we do not continue on that infinite path up to greater heights, then what? We fail. We lose. We disappoint others. We become worth less. The list goes on. Dene weavers deliberately weave small breaks or imperfections into the design of textiles. This practice is spiritual in nature and is attributed to the weaver's recognition that a part of her soul is poured into each weaving. The imperfection allows that part of her soul to escape the woven material and return to her. The practice is also a ritual to honor the perfection of Creator and the inherent imperfection of humanity. To me, it feels like an honoring of the circle. No state is static, including perfection. All things arise and then dissolve, only to arise again in a new form, in a new way. Perfection in industrialized nations has become a spiritual concept of literally biblical proportions. Even as the Bible acknowledges that humans are inherently imperfect, it also contains repeated urgings for us to strive toward perfection, recognizing perfection as an outcome of receiving grace. How can we possibly respond to social and religious edicts of perfection, perfection that only God is capable of? How do we make sense of authoritative messages that both recommend us to perfection and warn us of its impossibility? I am a word nerd. In addition, I recognize that words are vibrations, and vibrations shape our experience and our world. It is always helpful for me to understand from where a word arises and how it evolves. So what are the roots of the word perfect? According to Merriam-Webster, the word perfect comes from the Latin perfectus, which comes from perfecere, which means to carry out or accomplish. The Latin roots of perfectus are per, which means thoroughly, and facere, which means to make or do. Perfection, then, is about completing or being complete, to do thoroughly. The Bible describes God as perfect in this sense of complete, whole. From these roots, the idea of perfect has evolved into a concept of being flawless, without any shortcomings, without any blemish, without any error. When we approach perfection from the art of allowing, we open up to the possibility that perfection is simply the act of completing something, being thorough, or being whole. While these phrases are gentler forms of perfection, there is still a potential trap of the unattainable based on how we define whole, thorough, or complete. Yet the practice of allowing for some shift in how we define perfection creates a different vibration in us that attracts further shifts toward a non-polarized experience of perfection. Once we are able to allow our understanding of perfection to soften and open, we can allow an exploration of meaningful or intentional imperfection. Many cultures have spiritual traditions of intentional imperfection. In addition to deliberate imperfections in textiles, intentional imperfections appear in ceramics, in mosaics, even in architecture. Honoring deity by acknowledging we humans are imperfect is often a part of the artist's intentional imperfection. Choosing to allow imperfection is also a profound spiritual practice. The art of allowing imperfection is about letting go of the need for perfection in ourselves, in others, and in the world. Allowing ourselves to be imperfect is vital to exploration, experimentation, and creation. And when we understand that our world is created with imperfection, that sheds a whole new light on our subject. That may seem to be a bold assertion, but I know it is the case because everything is creator energy, and I have yet to see anything that is perfect in the way that many of us define perfection. Looking at sunsets or mountain ranges or the human face, none of these can boast absolute symmetry or exact framing or ideal colors. We are surrounded by unbounded, ever-changing beauty if we choose to allow imperfection to be the wellspring of diversity, the source of inspiration. When things don't go perfectly, we experience contrast, as the Abraham referred to it. When all is going as we wish, we don't need to create or question or explore. It's easy to become complacent. But that isn't to say that the universe sends us plagues to keep us on our toes or to spur us forward. Disappointment, sadness, fear, loss, failure isn't sent to us by deity to punish us. It is nothing more nor less than a natural part of our existence. It's like gravity, or air, or trees. It is part and parcel of being on earth. If God is in everything, then God enfolds imperfection, contrast, the unwanted, as well as the wanted. We are meant to come into physical form on earth as we are, and as the earth is. From the interactions among all that exists, new and diverse elements arise. Evolution is an interaction between the organism and the environmental experience, both the wanted and the unwanted. Adaptability is inherent in all life forms, which implies the expectation of contrast. We may fail to recognize that by condemning the unwanted, we are choosing to criticize the divine, rather than honoring and embracing, allowing the magnificent, unfathomable grandeur of the imperfect, teeming earth. We receive other simpler, more accessible indications of the spiritual value of the unwanted. For example, when we attempt to control others' perceptions of us, we invariably discover that is not possible. The desire to control how others see us comes from the fear of rejection or judgment when we are not perfect. We want to be perceived in only one direction, as good, successful, attractive, right. When we can embrace our imperfections, we no longer need to worry about others. When we are not worrying about others, we can attend to ourselves. Our energy is directed toward understanding, compassion, and presence to imperfections. These imperfections no longer have to be hidden from others, and therefore they no longer need to be hidden from ourselves. Once we are able to examine our own imperfections, we can decide how to make peace with them. From there, we open up the possibility of growth, of relief, of manifesting something new. If we examine perfection in the context of manifesting, we find that insisting on our version of the perfect manifestation usually strangles the flow of energy. If we imagine a very specific form in which a manifestation should occur, we have closed our energy off to an infinite number of other options. We insist deity produce the outcome we perceive as perfect. We, with our imperfect human vision, have decided that we know better than deity. Of course, we respond with this narrow view because we fear the outcome won't be perfect, even though we don't really know what that would look like. When we create, whether we are creating a dress, a song, a relationship, a business, peace on earth, we have to be willing to experiment, to converse with deity. We are making something new. That implies that we can't know exactly how it will turn out. We have to trust. And that is the spiritual gift of allowing and of manifesting. Allowing invites us to have faith, which is a cornerstone of spiritual life. Manifesting is powered by the art of allowing. Which brings us to another problem with perfection. We speak of perfection as if we know what perfection is, what perfection looks like, what perfection entails. The truth is, perfection is subjective. One person's flaw is another person's delight. The art of allowing invites us to see things as they are, to engage and understand how we harmonize or don't, and how we want to move forward. We get to choose, not for the other, but for ourselves. Perfection is not a divine concept. It is a human concept, and therefore it is imperfect. When we say that God, Allah, Creator, is perfect, what we are really trying to express is that deity is something beyond human. We recognize that the all that is cannot be truly known or truly described, and yet we humans are compelled to try. Language is a potent vehicle for bridging the gap between what we do understand and what we don't. Language allows us to share our adventures, revelations, emotions, thoughts. Language is also a human construct, and as we have already recognized, it is therefore imperfect, not whole. There are things in our awareness, in our lives, that we simply cannot truly put into words, and yet we cannot help ourselves. We are impelled by our desire to understand and to share. So we do our best. Our words are metaphors that allow us to exchange stories, explain to ourselves our experiences, and find a touchstone to help us retain, learn from, and incorporate what we learn into our understanding of ourselves and our universe. And when we recognize that these are metaphors, we must also remind ourselves that that doesn't mean what we're describing doesn't exist. It just means it isn't possible to truly draw the picture of God, to truly give the name of the Tao, to truly explain what it's like to feel grace. The art of allowing does not demand banishing the idea of perfection from our vocabulary. Rather, we are invited to recognize perfection for what it is, a subjective term, a metaphor, an opportunity for contrast and for understanding, rather than for what we have been taught that it is, a rule, a mandate, a pronouncement for what we should be. I wonder how you might respond to this invitation to rethink perfection, and what you will have the opportunity to shift and to manifest as a result. Our music is used by permission of the artist, Sean Phoenix. Thank you, Sean. And thank you to Bozeman Public Library for the Workbench Sound Studio located in beautiful downtown Bozeman, Montana. If you would like to learn more about allowing and how to find your unique style of manifesting, please visit my website, caravanofdreamsmt.com, or email me at dancingwitchmt@gmail.com. This is Ginny Watts, the Dancing Witch. Till next time, blessed be.